Everybody have a good Fourth? Yeah? Yeah? Good. Okay, so we have gotten to day 3 in the 7 days. We kind of did day 7 out of order, the day you die, last week when Shane did Legacy. And that's a good, it's good to kind of begin with the end in mind. What's this life all about? And so that's why we put it there. And so today I want to try to kind of synthesize day 2 and day 7 with day 3 so that we get some insights into suffering. There's so many things you could do with suffering. Honestly, this is the hardest lesson to teach because it's so sensitive, because suffering's so painful. And there's so many different kinds of suffering, and anything you say is going to have an exception, or it's going to, any kind of generalizations you have are going to be wrong for some people in some situations. And so forgive me in advance for anything I say. I try to be very sensitive, though, because there's nothing that hits us more close to home than when we're experiencing loss and suffering and pain and limits and all those things. But it's a very important topic for Christians to talk about. Would you agree with that? Even though it's very, very hard, just because something's hard doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And that's kind of where I've gotten in life. So if I make a mistake, you're welcome to come up to me afterwards and tell me I just don't agree with you. Or during class, you can say that. That's fine, because should be a discussion. And I don't have all the answers to this, at all. But I want to focus on, kind of hone in on one particular type of suffering, which is physical health suffering. And that's a hard one, too, to talk about. But I want to try, because I think God wants us to try. But I want to ground this in the Bible, and I also want to ground it in some science. And so I want to start with the Bible, but let me ask you a very basic Bible question, Bible school question. Why did Jesus come? Why did Christ in the body of Jesus come to earth? What's that all about? It's not a trick question. It's just we just need to start at the foundation. What? Save us from our sin. Is that good? Everybody like that? Okay, so Luke 19:10 says, "The Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost." So, all right. So let's just build on that. What's that word save mean?
You're in a situation where you need help.
Yeah. Just in general, I'm working on a project and I just can't do it. And I call somebody, come save me. Yeah. So sometimes it just means you need help. You can't do it on your own, right? Okay. Well, talk more. It's a rich biblical concept, and it's used a lot of times in the Bible. The Greek word for saved is sozo. Anybody ever heard that word? Seen that word? There's actually some ministries. If you kind of start looking around, there's several ministries named sozo ministries around the world. In fact, Freedom Prayer that we talk about a fair amount used to be called sozo. That was the name of the ministry before they changed the name. So save. What's it mean to be saved? What's happening there?
Being rescued.
Rescued. Good. What else?
Something has to be lost to be saved.
Yeah. So we have this state of lostness beforehand. Okay. What's being saved? What? Soul. Somebody say that? Okay. All right. All right, let's do a little word study, a little Greek word study. Somebody look up Luke 7:44. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah, I think that's right. Luke 7:44 through 50, and read it real loud for us. And look for that word.
Got it.
Okay, read it.
Then turning toward the woman, he said to Simon, "Did you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. For you gave me no kiss, but from the time I came in, she has not ceased to kiss my feet. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she anointed my feet with ointment. Therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little." And he said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." Then those who were at table with him began to say among themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" And he said to the woman, Your faith has saved you. Go in peace.
All right, so where did you find that word? You hear it in there? Okay. So what was he saving her from?
Lost in her sins.
Okay, yeah. So that's kind of the classic way we use it in church, right? We're saved from the punishment, the penalty of our sins. And that's how he seems to use it there, okay? So that's the word sozo. Okay, now somebody else read Luke 8:43 through 48 and look for the word.
I got it. As Jesus was on his way, the crowd almost crushed him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know the power has gone from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him, and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace."
Okay, so where's the word save in there? Did you hear it? Healed. Yeah, your faith has healed you. That right at the very end, the very last verse. It's the same exact word. So when you say the word saved, I'm saved, which is a fine thing, good thing for Christians to say. Are you thinking about it in terms of physical healing? I am physically healed. Does that fit into your conception of what salvation is?
No.
Okay. It's a little bit of a challenge, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to see if I can tease this one out. James 5:13 through 16. Somebody turn to that one.
Again,
Okay, go ahead and read it.
is anyone among you in trouble? Let them pray. Is anyone happy? Let them sing songs of praise. Is anyone among you sick? Let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer offered in faith will make the sick person well. The Lord will raise them up. If they have sinned, they will be forgiven. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective.
Okay, so there's an interesting thing going on here, which is sometimes gets obscured in different translations because it's so uncomfortable for our English hearing ears and our modern ears to hear. But what it actually says is anybody sick? Let the elders come and pray over them, anoint them with oil, and the prayer of faith shall sozo the sick. So, is that what you think of when people go to the elders to get anointed with oil? That they're getting saved? Is that the way you use that word? It's a little bit different than the way we usually use it, right? You think of people who need to be baptized. They go and get baptized. Maybe the elders do that, or a minister, and then they're saved. But when you go, you're already baptized, but you go to the elders and they pray for you, and your sickness maybe gets better, and then you're saved. So that's. But then if you go on to verse 16, so then he does talk about sins. If he has committed sins, they shall be forgiven. Confess your faults one to another and pray for another that you may be healed. So now he's using a different Greek word that's not sozo, and it means healed, physically healed, to talk about forgiving your sins. You get how in the first century the word saved meant more than it does now? So it included an aspect of the whole human. So when God says love, or when Jesus says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, it's everything. And there was much less division between all those things up until the last 500 years when science and the Enlightenment and things came along. So that's important for us as we think about Christians. How do we handle health challenges? So again, this gets really sensitive and really hard to talk about, but I'm going to try to do it because I think it's important. Say you get you're feeling really bad. What do you do? Go to the doctor, okay? And say the doctor sees something really bad on your scan, and they send you to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt saved my life when I was a kid. I'm thankful forever for the rest of my life to Vanderbilt Hospital. I think it's wonderful that we have one of the top hospitals in the whole world within 50 miles drive of us. And so I'm forever thankful to them. But if they go there, so what's the doctor going to say to you? Maybe it's cancer, maybe it's heart disease, maybe it's something else. What's the doctor going to suggest to you? Treatment, yeah. Okay, so what's that look like usually? So let's just pick the hardest one and say it's cancer. What are they going to recommend to you probably? Yeah, surgery, chemo, radiation, okay? All right. Now there's some newer things, and Vanderbilt's on the cutting edge, and so they'll sometimes do some new things too, and that's wonderful. But that's why you go to the doctor, right? Because you want them to do something physically. Cut it out, give me some chemical to kill it, give me some kind of radiation to kill it, right? I mean, that's what we think of. That's how we all think of medicine, right? So the way the Vanderbilt, it's not just Vanderbilt, really the whole medical systems model, which I practice as a veterinarian also, by the way, is the thing that we're going to focus on, the foundation is the body, okay? I'm going to see what I can do for your body because you're sick. Your sickness is in your body. I'm going to fix you by doing something to your body, okay? Now, at some more progressive places, they might say, you know, this is really hard. You might want to go talk to a counselor or something, right? And so of these three, which one is that? Mind, okay. So there is some people talking about mind-body medicine and all those kinds of things now. And they certainly know that you need support. They might suggest you join a support group or something. What about spirit? Does Vanderbilt address spirit at all? Sometimes. I mean, I think they have a chapel there, right? I think they do. And they might have a chaplain that comes around. But what I've observed is it's kind of icing on the top. You know, it's like, that's not really our thing. We're a hospital. We deal with bodies. We don't really deal with these two things. So that's kind of the model we've all accepted, right? When we're sick. Now, there might be individual exceptions in the room of how you've approached it. But that's kind of the general way we do it. Is there any problem with that? You like that model? Seems to work pretty well for a lot of people. So I'm going to argue a different model. And I think you can actually derive it from Genesis 1, which is what this whole class is derived from. But you can get it other places too. And this is some of where you get it, is these verses. In the beginning, what was there? Before Genesis 1:1, what was there? What? Yeah, there was God, right? There was spirit. So in the creation of everything, what existed before there was anything material, any matter, there was spirit, right? That's foundational. God existed eternally before that. All right, and then, and I'm going to throw in a little zinger here, but stay with me. Day one, what's created? Light. And what is light? You physicists?
Absence of darkness.
It isn't, okay, so you're a poet. I want the physicist to answer. Yes, it is the absence of darkness. That's true. But what else is it? What is light? It's a form of energy. Okay. So I'm going to put energy here, and then I'm going to explain myself. And if this loses you, just hang on. We'll do something else in a minute. Okay. So I think God, out of what God did first, is he energized the world, and then out of this energetic space, which includes the mind and the emotions and the will and all that, all those things. Can you show me your thought? Can you show me the idea you just had? Can you pull it out of your head and just hand it to me? No, it's a form of energy. A thought is an energetic form. It does not exist in the physical reality. It exists in the energetic reality. And I can talk for 6 hours about that if you want, but I'm not going to. Same thing with emotions. What are emotions? They're energy. They're stored as energetic patterns in our bodies and our brains and wherever you think they're stored. Okay? Only out of that do we get the physical. And in the case of our health, it's our bodies, but it could be the physical reality, the screen and that wall and all that stuff. Okay? Now, does that surprise anybody? You ever thought about it that way? That spirit is more foundational than body? There's some really cutting edge scientists who are starting to talk like this. And so they might use more secular terms, but you'll start hearing more about consciousness. Now you can argue if consciousness and, that's too hard of a word to spell, consciousness is the same as spirit, but it certainly seems to be in that realm, right? This awareness that we exist, this thing that directs us. So, just a little aside here to explain this better. Okay, think of a thought. Have a thought in your head. Okay, everybody got a thought in your head? All right. Now, can you observe yourself having that thought? All right, so this is the most liberating thing for me in the last 10 years, probably, maybe 15, is when I realized that I am not my thoughts and I'm not my emotions. Those are things that generate from a deeper place. So my spirit is bigger than my thoughts and my emotions. And when you can get to that place, then you have more control over your thoughts and your emotions. So I had a bad thought. Okay, well, that's not me. You just watch it drift on by like it's a river going by. Does that make sense? Anybody ever done that? It's called metacognition. If you haven't done that, it's transformative when you're in the middle of, you're having these horrible emotions and you can't get away from them. You can kind of separate and say, no, I'm bigger than that. I am an infinite being united with God. And these energetic things, whether it's emotions or thoughts or whatever they are, they're just things that are happening. Okay? So, and then how does that all relate to the body? All right? So that's what we want to talk about. So, I'm digging this hole pretty deep, so somebody rescue me if you think I'm going down a bad place. Here.
I was just thinking that it sounds like when I was growing up, there's I think it's called the dualism of the body spirit, and so this idea that the spirit is better than the body, and so you have these people that say, okay, the body is nothing, it's evil.
Yep.
We're about to die, get rid of it, kind of thing, and now we're going to live in the spirit.
Yeah.
But recently, I've understood that, like, when a person dies, they're going to be resurrected into a new body. So there's going to be a resurrection of body and spirit. And so the idea is that the body's not bad. And so I know that for myself, when I was doing therapy, there's a lot of people that are talking about how, like, the mind and spirit work together to help the body in some ways.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's great. There's a brand new book out that's getting a lot of attention recently. There's a brand new review on renew.org if you want to read the review before you buy the book. But it's called The Immortal Mind. And it's written by a pediatric neurosurgeon who started observing all these crazy things that led him to conclude that the mind is not contained in the brain. Now, for Christians, that's not as big of a jump, but for a scientist, that's a huge jump. Just so you know, I mean, I read a lot of brain science and neurology and stuff, and it's accepted as dogma in the scientific world that the mind emerges from the brain. But I don't believe that. That's not what I believe, because my Christian commitments, one, are bigger than my science commitments, although I love science. But this book makes a very eloquent argument through some really intriguing, for instance, there are Siamese twins joined at the head that share one brain, but they have two minds. How does that work? And he goes on and on with all these examples like that, of like, oh, that kind of destroys my paradigm of what I thought the mind was. All right? So it's different. All right. So, what do we do with this? I'll just give you one more little scripture reading, which is Luke 4:18 and 19. That's when Jesus stands up in the synagogue and says, when he came, you remember he read from Isaiah, I've come to preach good news to the poor, healing for the brokenhearted, delivery to the captives, sight for the blind, and liberty for the bruised is the actual way. It depends on what translation you read. So even he seemed to define his mission very broadly to include social issues and health issues, spiritual issues, everything. right? And that was his own. He could have chosen anything to say, but that's what he picked up and read and said, here, this has been fulfilled today. So, even though it's hard, because there's not a one-to-one correlation between these things, and goodness knows I do not want to be guilty of being Job's friends, who said, all your problems come because you're not spiritual enough. That's just wrong. I mean, that's just wrong. The Bible is clear that there's not a one-to-one correlation. And all those people debating with Jesus that says, hey, you think this guy sinned or his parents sinned? Is that why he's blind? And he's like, no, you're missing the point. So there is not a one-to-one correlation. God has all kinds of things going on in the world that we have no clue about. We get the veil unveiled in Job, and we see that there was this big thing going on with Satan and all that. There's all this stuff going on that we just don't know anything about. So sometimes we are part of a bigger story that we do not understand completely. So I am not in any way saying that we have total control. There's a lot of damage done by what's called the health and wealth gospel that says if you'll just be a good Christian, you'll be wealthy and you'll be healthy. Is that true? Okay, now, are you wealthier sometimes because you're a Christian in the United States in 2025? I think yes. I think there are some times when you use Christian principles. You're honest, you're hardworking, all these things you got from being a Christian sometimes result in you being wealthier, right? But there's not a one-to-one correlation. Do you know some very spiritual, anybody ever traveled to Africa and seen people? Those people don't have two dimes to run together, but some of them are the most spiritual people I've ever met. So there's not a one-to-one correlation. Same thing with health. Sometimes the best people have the most sickness. Why would that be? So if you look at the Christian mystics throughout history, so Hildegard of Bingen and all these people who have been canonized as saints in the Catholic Church, which I think they're worthy of us looking back to and saying, wow, they knew something about connection with God. Some of those people had all kinds of illnesses. Why would that be that the most spiritual people might have the most illnesses?
They reached out to God out of necessity.
Yeah.
They had to.
So maybe their illnesses actually made them get closer to God. So I would, again, never say that God causes your illness or anything like that, because I don't think that's good theology. But is there always a lesson to be learned when you have suffering of any kind, health or otherwise? Is there a lesson to be learned? And what do you think that lesson is sometimes? There might be 1,000 lessons, but what do you think the lesson of sickness could be? What if you go to it and say, what can I learn from this? What are some of the possible answers? Have you ever learned anything from a sickness, from an illness?
We're not in control.
Okay.
It teaches us to lean less on ourselves.
There you go. Yeah.
We felt like we were being called to be an example for others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we felt like we were being observed, and not that our faith was fake, but we felt like we were living it out in real time.
Yeah.
And so we felt like that's what we were being
Yeah.
called, and what our lesson was
Yeah.
to show the world what our faith was.
Yeah. Bible talks a lot about that, about that people will know God's love by looking at His people. Are they loving? Are they walking the walk in the midst of the hardest of times? Yeah, that's wonderful. So, one thing I would say, I'm going to go some weird places next. But I'll be more orthodox right now and say that any suffering you hit, it's so hard to do. But some of you may have gotten here. I just barely get glimpses of this sometimes because I really still don't like suffering very much. But if you can look at it and say, an interesting challenge. What can I learn from this? What does God want to do in me through this, or for other people? That's a wonderful place. There's so much liberty. There's so much freedom if you can get to that place. Now, getting there takes a whole lifetime sometimes, and we may never get there completely. But I do think that suffering can be redemptive. So God didn't cause it necessarily, but He can say, okay, there's some raw material. I can work with that. I can do something with that. And remember how we talked about the stages of faith, how you're pretty productive and whatever, but then you go to this journey inward. Do you think true big sickness makes you go inward? Y'all go inward? Ask some hard questions? Yeah. And so I think if we let it can break through that wall and get us to stage 5 and stage 6, where there's not much of us left. So The wall really is when our ego meets God's ego, and you see who wins. You can let yours win. You can go backwards. You can lose your faith. You can go backwards. You can do whatever. But if you go through the wall, then there's like, I'm not that important. God's all important, right? So suffering in any of its forms can do that. And it's the hardest. I think it might be the hardest thing we have to endure on this earth. I mean, there's nothing that I know of that's harder than that, maybe. And so. Now, I want to go somewhere else, and I do this with fear and trembling. All right, so I have been reading this book for the last few months called Radical Remission, okay? So this book, what came out of, this woman was a counselor at a hospice, I think, and she had all these patients who were dying, and they all had bad prognosis. You know, you're not going to live very long, a few months, whatever. And she started noticing that a few of them, not all of them, we're not making a rule here, but a few of them actually beat the odds. They lived longer, okay? And she started just being curious about, I wonder why. And then she started kind of collating their stories, and she wound up going back and getting a PhD so that she could bring some scientific rigor to this. And so she has about 5,000 cases of people who were told by their doctors that they were not going to live very long, but then they did. They lived longer than they expected. And then what is that? So, have you ever seen that happen? You ever seen people who live longer than their prognosis? What do you think it was that helped them to live longer? Now, sometimes it's going to get you. I mean, my dad died of a heart attack and he was dead before he got to the hospital. He didn't outlive his prognosis. I mean, he just died. And I don't think he was a wonderful spiritual person, probably in level 5 already, you know. So I'm not making a rule here. But is there something we can learn as Christians here? Is there something that maybe, if all the other things align and it's God's will, that maybe you can outlive your prognosis? Maybe by a little, maybe by a lot. So what things do you think might contribute to you living longer than the doctors say you might?
I know, and I'm not sure if you're just going for straight spiritual, but
All things.
They said about my dad that he was a miracle,
Mhm.
that he survived that dissected aorta to begin with.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, man, he never quit moving. I mean, he paid attention to his body.
Okay.
He walked and ran and prayed and did all of the things
Okay.
for so long.
All right.
He stayed in really good health.
So,
And I would say body and spirit.
okay.
Daddy was teaching classes and
Okay, I'm going to call that exercise. Is that fair? Just movement. You could call it
Yeah.
movement. So does that make a difference sometimes in outliving your prognosis if you're really in pretty good shape before you go? Sometimes. Depends on the diagnosis. But yeah, so moving your body matters, right? And if you've moved your body really well, then sometimes you do better than the average, you know? Okay? All right? So that's in the physical realm. So, and you did mention spiritual, but I'll come back to what you said about your dad teaching and all that. Okay, so in the physical realm, exercise is one of the things that might alter the suffering you're having, okay? I think there's a point here. There's a spiritual point here. It's worth doing this in Sunday school class, okay? So what's something else maybe in the physical realm that you might be able to do that might help you to overcome some of your health suffering?
Diet.
Yeah, that's the big one. Yeah. So we all kind of know by now that there's a better way to eat and a worse way to eat. How many of you eat 100% according to your values? I hope that, I bet some of you do. You're just very humble. That's not, I bet there are a few people who do that. But can it make a big difference in your overall health?
Yes.
Can it alter even some really serious things sometimes? Yeah. So in this radical remission things, these were two of the things that they found. There were 10 things that they identified that almost everybody shared in common. They all did most or all of these things. There were other things they did that were maybe unique. And maybe that helped them, but they were looking for commonalities. What are all these people doing that's different than the people maybe who did? So, all right, so diet and exercise. Anything else? Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna create a new category here, emotional. And so one of the things was, let's see, I know there's going to be one here, so I'm going to put social support. Do you think this makes a difference? It's pretty huge. Now, you might not survive physically, but does that help you anyway? Does it help you spiritually and emotionally and mentally to have that social support? So there can be healing without cure also. You have to remember that. This is so vital. Increased social support was common to almost every single person. Now, there were introverts who didn't want 1,000 people around them. You know, they maybe only wanted one other good friend or two other good friends. So social support might look different for you than it looks for somebody else. But it's a huge thing. And isn't that interesting that God kind of commands us, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves. You know, live in fellowship with one another. Be Christ's body on the earth, right? So you see how your faith might affect your health, right? Okay. What else? So I'm going to put another category here, spiritual, and there's actually another category, mental, to get to these 10. All right. So anything in any of the categories that you want to think might have made a difference in this study of 5,000 people.
So change your habits, like bad habits,
Okay. Yeah, so give me an example.
smoking,
Okay, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and actually, I'm trying to see if that fits into one of their categories. Maybe. So there's an interesting one here that, and I don't know what number it is. It's called Take Control of Your Health. Now, what do you think that means? It could mean that you change your habits. That's one thing it could mean, right? You just say, I'm going to do everything I can to make this better, right? All right. What else might that mean? It was shared by everybody almost, yeah?
Being intentional.
Yeah. So, you know, I make my living telling people what to do for health things. I do surgery, I do all those things. And so if you're not careful, as a doctor, you kind of can get angry at people who don't agree with you. I don't do that anymore. In fact, I love it when clients disagree with me now. It's one of my favorite things. But for a long time, when I was younger especially, it was not my favorite thing. I learn things from clients every day almost. And so I love it when they tell me new things. Hey, have you thought about this? No, I never heard of that. Tell me about that. Some of my best medical practices come from my clients. And so that was real intimidating for me for about the first 10 years I was in practice. Maybe my self-esteem wasn't enough or whatever. But now I love it. And so I love it when my clients who have patients, in my case, take control of the health. And they tend to do better. The ones who say, I found this supplement online. Can I use that? And we'll talk about it, And so I have something to offer. I know some things they don't, but maybe they could know some things I don't. Who's going to care more about your health, you or anybody else in the world? You, right? All right. So you saying, hey, I have some agency here. I have some ability to take control of this and make some decisions. Makes a big difference. All right. What else? Purpose. All right. So that's the subtitle of this class is living the second half of life with purpose. What is the number one above all other things in the world, the number one thing that predicts that you as a person in the second half of life will be alive 10 years from now? There's one thing that's much greater than anything else. There's one thing that makes it 300% more likely for you to be alive 10 years from now. A strong sense of life purpose. It's the most predictive of anything. Even if you're fat and you eat bad and you don't exercise and all that, if you have a strong sense of life purpose, you're 300% more likely to be alive 10 years from now than you were before. It's much greater than diet, much greater than smoking, much greater than any. In fact, you have to do all of the other things in your life to even get close to equaling purpose as an independent variable. Does that surprise you? Why would that be? Why do you think that would be? Yeah. I mean, it matters if you have something to live for. It's easy to give up, right? Now, again, that's complicated because sometimes your greatest purpose might be like Jesus. He didn't want to die. I mean, he's begging not to die, but he died anyway, right? Because his greatest purpose was accomplished in his death. And so it's complicated. And I don't mean to be making hard and fast rules, but this can make a giant difference if you're going through something hard, if you have something to live for. Strong reasons for living is the way they put it in this study. Okay, what else?
What about sleep or rest?
Okay, yeah, that's good. And that didn't actually show up as an independent variable in their studies, but I like it. Maybe we'll put it here. Sleep. Yeah, I mean, most people say move, eat, sleep. Those are the big things for your health as far as physical things that we can do. Yeah, so I like it. All right.
I'm not sure if it would go under physical or something below that, but the physiological aspects of stress.
Okay, so how much disease do you think is estimated by really smart people who study this is related to stress? What percentage of disease is related to stress? 85, 96, yeah. Somewhere between 90 and 95 is the thing that Vanderbilt's website says that. And it's, it even has this kind of materialist worldview, and it still says stress is the most important. So what do we do about stress? What is stress? And why can it be so bad? We could talk for a long time, but like in 1 minute, tell me.
It produces a hormone called cortisol, which can actually attack your cells.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of physiological things that happen when we're in stress. When we're in fight or flight, and we get all those chemicals bathing our body that are good in the short term when there's a tiger chasing you, and bad every other time, right? All right, good. So doing something that helps your stress. So just to go down the stress road for just a second, because it's so important for health. Can two people experience the exact same thing and one be stressed by it and the other one not? Why? What's the difference?
We're different.
Yes, why? How?
Our personality,
Okay,
what, gender,
okay, all right.
our desire to control things,
Uh-huh,
our
yeah.
sorry.
So sometimes when you get to the advanced spiritual levels of stage 5 and 6, sometimes those people don't look as stressed, right? Because they've kind of given up their ego, their desire to say, God, whatever you want me to do. What do you want me to do today? Have you gotten to the point where you can just get up in the morning and say, I don't have any plans. God, what do you want me to do today? I mean, now that's an emotional, and you might have goals and plans, but can you get up and say, if you change my plans today, God, I'm okay with that. Would you have less stress if you could do that, you think? You just kind of roll with the punches. Now, deliberate. You still have intention, right? You still love God. You still want to do things for His kingdom. You still love other people. But you just have this kind of willingness to give up control, right? So a lot of it is perspective. You can go into something. Do you see things that stress kids out that don't stress adults? Because they don't have a perspective, right? They haven't lived enough life to know that it's not the end of the world if you lose your teddy bear, or whatever the thing is. And so, all right. So, anything else? Add some things to the list. There's still some to go.
I don't know if this makes the list, but your attitude, taking control of your thoughts.
Yeah. And I think this might be part of that. I think there's another. I'm gonna put it under emotional. So there's two parts to emotional here. One is increase positive emotions. And so, something I learned from Tony Robbins. I don't know if y'all like Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins also probably saved my life at age 38. So I love him. I always love him, no matter what. He's a weird guy, but I love him. And one thing he says is there's always good and bad with you every day. You wake up and you can focus on the bad in the world, or you can focus on the good in the world. And there's a lot of both. And so you choosing where to put your focus. Now, that doesn't mean you suppress bad things. Bad things are real, and you have emotions to them, and it's okay. But can you choose where to focus, where to put your mind? Does the Bible have anything to say about that? Yeah. Whatsoever is true, whatsoever is noble, whatsoever is just, think on these things, right? The Bible it has a pretty good roadmap. Do you think that can affect your health? Do you think that can save you? Yeah. All right. The other one I'm going to go ahead and put, this is actually my favorite one. And if you want to talk after class, I'd love to talk to you about it for 6 or 8 hours. Release suppressed emotions. All right. What's that mean?
Don't sweep it under the rug.
All right.
Recognize it.
Yeah.
Share it.
Yeah. So sometimes we feel like it's not acceptable to be angry, or it's not acceptable to be fearful, but we are anyway, and so we stuff it. You ever stuffed an emotion? That's not acceptable, so you just stuff it. Does that have a health effect? Yes, in case you're wondering. I mean, Shane talked last week about when people have bitterness and things, it can actually cause heart disease. We all know this. People used to talk about getting stomach ulcers when you're really stressed, you know. And I know there's a bacteria, I know all that, but the bacteria, interestingly enough, is in 90% of the people who have the bacteria don't get ulcers. So it's still probably stress. The bacteria is just a mediator. So the real thing is the stress probably. So releasing suppressed, there's 1,000 ways to do this. I have 2 or 3 I really like if you don't talk to me afterwards. But if you can get rid of all the junk. So Evan talked about this just a little bit when he was talking about day 1. You get some baggage. That's what this sermon series is about. You get some baggage from your family of origin. Anybody have any baggage from your family of origin? Raise your hand if you have baggage from your family of origin. Yeah, so you can get rid of some of that stuff. And that's the perfect time to do it is when your nest is empty and then you have some time, okay? All right, what else? Anything else? Okay, I have almost no time, so I'm gonna just put the rest of them. All right, we're almost there. This one is deepen your spiritual connection. So that's day 2. We talked all about that. So that's kind of, I mean, purpose is a spiritual thing, but just this, how do we walk with God each day? How do we feel God's presence every day? Almost 100% of the people who beat the odds with their health did that. They found a way to connect with God. Almost 100% of them did that. Now, some of them did it in weird ways you might not like and all that, but we have a resilient faith that is capable of making a huge difference in our lives. And it gives you peace, even if you don't beat the prognosis, it still gives you peace, right? If you can connect with God every day. All right, so that was huge. This one is herbs and supplements, which I will talk about just for a second. Some of you might hate those and some might love them, that's okay. And then this one is follow your intuition. And we could talk for hours about both of those, but let's not. So let's go to intuition just for a second, because I think it might be important. What's intuition and why should we follow it? You might not think we should, so that's okay too. We have like 30 seconds, but I'll talk longer if you want. Because we're all empty nesters, right? We don't have any kids to go pick up. We can talk longer. So, all right.
If you think of it as the Holy Spirit's nudging, that's different than follow your heart, follow your
Yeah.
truth, which can be
A bunch of trash, yeah. Yeah. So I would say there's been a lot of research on this, and it's a little scary subject a little bit to a lot of people, but 2 things. One is I think I put it under mental, but it should be in spiritual. I think that intuition can be a mental thing in that you know a lot of stuff you don't know you know. And so I would say almost every good doctor I know, you can ask Jeremy if he does this. I do this all the time. I can walk into the exam room, and before I've done any lab test or anything, about 80% of the time I already know what's going on. Do you have that sometimes? It's just, that's called intuition. It's just trained. We've seen so many things that you see these patterns, you might even know what you're seeing, but you just know. Now I'm wrong 20% of the time, which is why you go ahead and run lab tests and do other things, because you should, right? But 80% of the time, and I bet you can do that in your job too. You got this intuition. Some of it's just a well-trained mind that knows much more than you know. So you haven't worked out the logic of it yet, but it works. And they talk about how this is especially important in really complicated diseases like cancer because everybody's different. There's 1,000 causes of cancer, and there's 1,000 different situations in your body, and sometimes you're the one who knows the best. So that can be important. Herbs and supplements, let me just say 20 seconds about this. I do a lot of holistic medicine, so I love this subject, but the big difference, I think, between traditional medicine and natural medicine is that traditional medicine tends to, this is changing, but traditional medicine tends to look at the medicine itself as affecting the cure. So you take an antibiotic, it kills the bacteria, you're better. Okay? And I prescribe antibiotics every day. So I'm all for that when it's appropriate. But natural medicine tends to say, how can I strengthen the body so that it can fight the things on its own? And we see this is starting to happen in traditional medicine, like with immunotherapy, for instance, where when there's an opportunity to do that, you can strengthen the immune system in it, and it can fight the disease, sometimes more effectively than you doing it directly. So I think that's why this comes up so often, is people are saying, I want to support my body, I want to love my body, I want to help my body in any way I can to support it and help it work at its best. Now sometimes that's not enough, but sometimes it is. Sometimes your immune system then is strong enough, along with all these other things that are affecting you physically, they affect your physiology and your chemistry and all the things, then that can make a difference. All right. Anybody have any other final comments? Is that of interest to you? The book's pretty fascinating.
If we had to pick 3 to work on. That's probably different than everybody else, but.
Well, so the interesting thing in the book is that different people emphasize different ones. And so I think that's where you have to follow your intuition. You know, some people said, I'm not taking any herbs and supplements. A few people said, I'm just going to do it all with diet. I don't believe in taking any pills at all. Some people said different things. I mean, there were a lot of different variations on this. And some of that is saying, what's right for my body at this time? And always look at it as an opportunity to get closer to God. I think that's the thing. So that even if you don't overcome it, you've still gotten a great blessing from the thing. Does that make sense? All right. Did I get through without offending anybody, I hope? I love talking about these things. I could talk endlessly about them. So if you like one of those subjects, please talk to me afterwards. All right. That's it. Thanks.